The massive chamber of the Galactic Council stretched. High above, like a cathedral made of metal and crystal, Kim stood at the center of it all, feeling very small. The alien beings around him were huge, some as tall as buildings, others floating in the air like living clouds. Their eyes glowed with colors that had no names, and their voices made sounds that the translation machines could barely understand. Kim wore his best black suit, but it looked plain next to the shining robes and armor of the aliens behind him. Stood three other humans. Lee was holding her datapad so tight her knuckles were white. Park kept checking his military reports, and Troy was reading legal documents over and over again. All four humans knew that billions of people back on Earth were depending on what happened in this room. Today the chamber was filled with noise. Every alien species was talking at once, clicking, hissing, buzzing, and making sounds that hurt human ears. The translation machines worked hard to turn all these sounds into words, but sometimes they just gave up and made beeping noises instead. Kim waited for the noise to stop so he could speak finally. The huge creature at the front of the room raised one of his many arms. Council Prime Vex was the leader of all these aliens. He had tentacles instead of arms, and his eyes glowed like dying stars. When he moved his tentacles, the whole room became quiet. Kim took a deep breath and began to speak. His voice was steady even though his heart was beating fast. Honored council members, he said, Earth asks to join the Galactic Trade Federation. We also ask for quantum fuel technology. Our people have been peaceful for many years. We have worked hard to prove we are ready the moment Kim finished speaking, the chamber exploded with what could only be called laughter, but it was not nice laughter. The insect creatures clicked their jaws together, making sharp sounds. The crystal beings rang like broken bells. The reptile creatures made hissing sounds that their translators said meant they thought humans were funny. Council Prime Vex waved his tentacles and the laughter stopped. Little humans, he said in a voice that boomed through the whole chamber, you talk about being ready when your people still fight each other. Your technology is like toys compared to ours. Your minds are too small to understand the universe. You want quantum fuel when you barely understand fire. Kim felt his face get hot, but he kept his voice calm. We have not had wars for 60 years, he said. Our science may seem small to you, but we did it all by ourselves. We just want a chance to show we can be equal partners. The laughter got louder. A creature made of gas that kept changing shape wheezed. Equal partners, you are like children who just learned to walk. Your whole planet could fit inside one of our mining stations. Lee stepped forward, holding her datapad with respect. She said, humanity has made important discoveries in medicine and math. We have solved problems that your best scientists could not figure out for thousands of years. Parlor Trick said Vex with a wave of his tentacle. Any species can stumble onto basic ideas. Given enough time, you do not have the brain power for real science. The human team looked at each other. This was going much worse than they had feared. Park whispered to Kim, Sir, maybe we should accept their offer to be a protectorate. Kim shook his head slightly. They had come too far to be treated like children. We understand your concerns, he said out loud, but we think working together would help everyone. Earth has new ideas and ways of doing things that could make the council stronger. What could you possibly offer us? The question came from floating ball covered in eyes, its voice full of disgust. Your soldiers are weak, your ships are slow, your minds are simple. You make nothing we cannot make better and faster. The chamber became very quiet. Kim straightened his shoulders. Something changed in the way he stood. It was small, but every alien in the room noticed it. When Kim spoke again, his voice was different. It was quiet but strong. Very well, Kim said, his words cutting through the silence like a knife. We understand your position clearly. If humanity is truly as worthless as you say, then you will not miss us being here. Vex narrowed his many eyes. What are you saying? Humanity, am stating a fact. Kim replied, Earth withdraws from all galactic treaties, trade agreements, and cooperative projects. We will return to our home system immediately. Good day. The chamber erupted in surprised chatter as the humans began packing their things. This had never happened before. No species had ever just walked away from galactic civilization. Wait, Vex commanded, his tentacles moving wildly. You cannot simply leave. The agreements you signed were based on eventual council membership. Troy interrupted, reading from his legal pad. Since that has been permanently denied, all our obligations are void. As the humans walked toward the exit, the council members began to realize they might have made a mistake. Earth's withdrawal would cause problems they had not thought about. but their pride stopped them from calling the humans back. Kim stopped at the big doors and turned around one last time. "We came here seeking partnership," he said. "You have shown us exactly what you think of humanity. We will remember this lesson." The doors closed behind the humans with a sound that seemed to echo forever. The council members stood in shocked silence. They had expected the humans to beg to come back. Instead, the humans had walked away with their heads held high. In the hours that followed, the aliens began to understand what they had done. Earth had been involved in hundreds of projects across the galaxy. Human scientists worked at research stations, human traders managed supply routes, human diplomats helped solve problems between different species. All of that was about to end. The first reports came in within hours. Human research stations were shutting down. Human traders were canceling contracts. Human diplomats were leaving their posts. The humans were not just withdrawing from the council, they were withdrawing from everything. Vex sat alone in his private chamber, staring at the reports flooding in. The humans were serious. They were actually leaving. It was supposed to be impossible. No species could survive outside galactic civilization, but as he read report after report of humans quietly packing up and going home, Vex began to wonder if the council had made the biggest mistake in galactic history. The humans had asked for partnership. The council had offered mockery. The humans had asked for equality. The council had offered servitude. The humans had asked for respect. The council had offered contempt. Now the humans were gone, and Vex was starting to realize that maybe the council needed them more than they had ever needed the council. Outside in the great chamber, the other council members were having similar thoughts. The humans had walked away, but they had not begged, they had not threatened, they had simply stated facts and left. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council was facing something they did not understand, a species that would rather be alone than be disrespected. The question now was whether it was too late to fix their mistake. But the humans were already gone, and the galaxy was about to learn what it meant to try to function without them. 3 months had passed since the council meeting, and Captain Song stood on the bridge of his cargo ship, watching the last lights go out at the human research station. The evacuation was happening faster than anyone had expected. What started as a dignified withdrawal was becoming something much bigger. Song had been a cargo captain for 20 years, hauling supplies between human colonies and alien worlds. He had seen many changes in his time, but nothing like this. The humans were not just leaving, they were taking everything with them, every piece of equipment, every research file, every small invention that might be useful. Final transport is clear, Captain reported Lieutenant Nam from her station at the communications desk. The research station is empty. Song nodded and looked out at the station one last time. The Centauri research station had been humanity's proudest achievement in space. It was a joint project with 3 alien species, and they had discovered amazing things about how stars work. Now it sat dark and empty because the aliens had suddenly found reasons to end their partnerships. Once Earth announced its isolation. "Take us home," Song ordered his pilot. As the ship turned toward Earth, Song thought about how quickly everything had changed. The council rejection had done something unexpected to humanity. Instead of making them sad and defeated, it had made them determined. Instead of begging to come back, humans everywhere were quietly coming home. Every human citizen, researcher, diplomat, and trader scattered across the galaxy was packing up. Mining operations on asteroids were being shut down. Scientific projects were being ended. Trade routes that had worked for decades were going silent. The aliens had thought it was just a tantrum. They expected humanity to come crawling back within a few months, desperate for the technology and resources that only galactic civilization could provide. But as ship after ship disappeared into human space carrying decades of knowledge and experience, some aliens began to realize this was not just a protest. Dr. Han sat in her small cabin on the ship, reviewing the research data she had managed to bring home. Officially, she was supposed to leave all her work behind. Unofficially, she had memorized huge amounts of information and hidden storage devices in places no alien would think to look. She was not alone across the evacuation fleet. Human scientists, engineers, and technicians were bringing home more than just themselves. They carried the knowledge of 3 centuries of working with aliens, insights into alien technology that no treaty could have provided. Dr. Han heard a knock at her door. It was Dr. Yoon, her former colleague from the Biological Sciences Division. "Could You join us in conference room 3, he asked. We are having an informal discussion about our research. Han smiled. Informal discussion had become code for something much more important. In the 3 months since the Exodus began, these discussions had turned into something like a secret scientific revolution. She walked through the ship's corridors, passing groups of humans who no longer looked like the defeated people who had left the council. There was energy in the air, a sense of purpose that had not existed before. They were no longer trying to prove themselves worthy of alien approval. They were discovering what they could accomplish without it. Conference room 3 was packed with people, engineers from the old human colonies, researchers from abandoned joint projects, and military officers from dissolved cooperative programs, all sat together sharing knowledge that had been spread across the galaxy. The quantum resonance patterns, Yoon was saying, they are much simpler than the aliens made them seem. I think they were making the explanations complicated on purpose, agreed, said Commander Jang, who used to work with the Galactic Defense Initiative. Their military technology follows the same pattern. It works, but it is not as mysteriously advanced as they claimed. Han took her seat and listened as the discussion continued. Piece by piece, the humans were taking apart the myth of alien superiority. What they were discovering was that their former partners had been sharing knowledge selectively, always keeping a technological advantage that justified their superiority. But now, with 3 centuries of observations and no need to be diplomatic, patterns were emerging. The aliens were advanced, certainly, but not impossibly so. Their technology could be understood, their methods could be copied. There is something else, Han said when it was her turn to speak. The biomedical research, they said, was impossible for human minds. I have been running calculations. We were much closer to breakthrough than they ever told us. The room fell quiet as everyone understood what this meant. If the aliens had been deliberately limiting human progress, then the exile might be the best thing that had ever happened to Earth. Captain Song's voice came through the ship's communication system. All hands prepare for quantum jump. Next stop, Earth. As the stars blurred outside the windows, the humans on the ship were not going home in defeat. They were bringing with them the tools to change humanity's future, and maybe the galaxies as well. Back on Earth, the returning humans were greeted not with sympathy for their exile, but with excitement for what they brought. The government had been preparing for this moment, setting up new research facilities and recruiting the best minds from the returning evacuees. Director Kim, the same man who had faced the council, now stood in a huge underground facility beneath the Australian desert. The place was filled with the sound of machinery and the excitement of discovery. Status report, Kim called to his team. Quantum drive prototype is showing stable results, reported Chief Engineer Kong. We are achieving 92% efficiency. Kim raised an eyebrow. The alien drives we observed never went above 85% exactly. Kang smiled. Turns out their superior technology had some serious problems. We have been fixing them. The past 3 months have been a revelation. Without alien oversight, human creativity had exploded in directions no one had expected. The returning scientists and engineers had brought more than just knowledge. They had brought questions that had been discouraged for centuries. Dr. Yang approached from the medical section, barely containing her excitement. Director, you need to see this. The life extension treatments we have developed are showing incredible results. Test subjects are experiencing cell regeneration at rates that should be impossible. Kim followed Yang through the facility past laboratories where human researchers were pushing the boundaries of what their species could do. The isolation that was supposed to punish humanity had instead freed them to explore their full potential. How did we not see this before? Kim asked as they walked. Because we were always comparing ourselves to them, Yang replied. We thought that because they were older, more established, they must be better. But age does not always mean progress. Sometimes it means being stuck in old ways. They reached the medical area where volunteers were trying the new treatments. The results were amazing. Humans who had been aging normally were now showing signs of cell regeneration, enhanced physical abilities, and dramatically improved mental sharpness. The aliens told us these treatments would not work with human biology, Yang explained, but they were wrong, or maybe they were lying. Kim looked at the results and felt a chill run down his spine. If the aliens had been lying about this, what else had they been lying about? His communication device buzzed with an urgent message. Director, we are receiving a transmission from deep space. It is from the Galactic Council. Kim and Yang hurried to the communications center where the message was being decoded. The face of Council Prime Vex appeared on screen, his expression very different from what it had been 3 months ago. People of Earth, Vex began, his voice carrying worry that had not been there before. The Galactic Council wishes to open talks about your return to galactic civilization. We are prepared to offer significant concessions. Kim exchanged glances with Yang. What kind of concessions? The message continued. We are willing to grant immediate Trade Federation membership and access to quantum fuel technology. We also wish to resume scientific cooperation on better terms for humanity. They are scared, observed Captain Jung, who had been monitoring galactic communications. Our intelligence networks are picking up increased chatter about the human question. Something has them worried. What could they possibly be worried about? Kim asked. We have been isolated for 3 months. Maybe that is exactly what worries them, Yang suggested. They thought isolation would weaken us. Instead, we have been growing stronger. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Lim, who had been working on quantum communications, rushed into the room with a datapad. Director, I have been monitoring their deep space communications. They are not just concerned about us, they are terrified. Of what? Kim asked. Of this, Lim said, activating a holographic display. 3 weeks ago, our automated probes detected something in the outer rim. The aliens have been fighting a war for the past decade, and they are losing. The hologram showed star charts with huge sections marked in red. An extragalactic species has been conquering systems along the rim. The Council has been throwing everything they have at them, but they are being pushed back. Kim stared at the display, understanding beginning to dawn. They need us more than that. Lim continued. Intelligence suggests the invaders have been studying Council military tactics for years. They are perfectly adapted to fight alien forces, but they have never encountered humans because we were never allowed to participate in galactic defense. Jung added grimly. The implications were staggering. For 3 centuries, humanity had been treated as junior partners. 5 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, and Director Min stood in the heart of Earth's most ambitious project. The underground facility stretched for miles beneath the Australian desert, its chambers filled with the sound of machinery that would have been impossible to build under alien supervision. The facility was like a hidden city. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock in laboratories that pushed the boundaries of what humanity thought possible. The air hummed with energy and excitement as breakthrough after breakthrough changed everything they thought they knew about science and technology. Status report. Min called out to her team. Quantum Drive Prototype 7 is showing stable field generation, reported Chief Engineer Kang, his fingers moving across displays that showed information in ways no alien technology could match. We are achieving 93% efficiency. 93%. Min raised an eyebrow. The alien drives we observed never went above 87% exactly. Kang grinned. Turns out their superior technology had some serious flaws. We have been fixing them. The past 5 years had been a revelation. Without alien oversight, human creativity had exploded in directions no one had expected. The returning scientists and engineers had brought more than just knowledge. They had brought questions that had been forbidden for centuries. Dr. Yang approached from the biological sciences section, her excitement barely contained. Director, you need to see this. The life extension treatments we have developed are showing remarkable results. Test subjects are experiencing cell regeneration at rates that should be impossible. Min followed Yang through the facility past laboratories, where human researchers were pushing the boundaries of what their species could achieve. The isolation that was supposed to punish humanity had instead freed them to explore their full potential. How did we not see this before? Min asked as they walked. Because we were always comparing ourselves to them, Yang replied. We thought that because they were older, more established, they must be better, but age does not always mean advancement. Sometimes it means being stuck in old ways. They reached the medical area where volunteers were undergoing the new treatments. The results were incredible. Humans who had been aging normally were now showing signs of cell regeneration, enhanced physical capabilities, and dramatically improved mental abilities. The aliens told us these treatments would be incompatible with human biology, Yang explained, but they were wrong, or maybe they were lying. Min's communication device chimed with an urgent message. Director, we are receiving a transmission from the outer System monitors, it is from the Galactic Council. They made their way to the communications center where the message was already being decoded. The face of Council Prime Vex appeared on the screen, his expression far less arrogant than it had been. 5 years ago, people of Earth, Vex began, his voice carrying worry that had not been there before. The Galactic Council wishes to open negotiations about your return to galactic civilization. We are prepared to offer significant concessions, Min exchanged glances with her team. What kind of concessions? The message continued. We are willing to grant immediate Trade Federation membership and access to quantum fuel technology. We also wish to resume scientific cooperation on terms more favorable to humanity. They, as scared, observed Captain Jung, who had been monitoring galactic communications. Our intelligence networks are picking up increased chatter about the human question. Something has them worried. What could they possibly be worried about? Min asked. We have been isolated for 5 years, maybe. That is exactly what worries them, Yang suggested. They thought isolation would weaken us. Instead, we have been growing stronger. The answer came from an unexpected source, Dr. Lim, who had been working on quantum communications, rushed into the room with a datapad. Director, I have been monitoring their deep space communications. They are not just concerned about us, they are terrified of what Min asked of. This, Lim said, activating a holographic display. 3 weeks ago, our automated probes detected something in the outer rim. The aliens have been fighting a war for the past decade, and they are losing. The hologram showed star charts with vast sections marked in red. An extragalactic species has been conquering systems along the rim. The Council has been throwing everything they have at them, but they are being pushed back. Min stared at the display, understanding beginning to dawn. They need us more than that, Lim continued. Intelligence suggests the invaders have been studying Council military tactics for years. They are perfectly adapted to fight alien forces, but they have never encountered humans because we were never allowed to participate in galactic defense, Jung added grimly. The implications were staggering. For 3 centuries, humanity had been treated as junior partners, protected and controlled by their alien supervisors. But now, when the galaxy faced its greatest threat, that protection had become a liability. The invaders had spent decades learning how to fight the established galactic powers. They knew every strategy, every weapon, every tactical approach that the Council might use, but they had never seen human military doctrine because humans had never been allowed to develop it independently. Send a response, Min ordered. Tell them we received their message and are considering their proposal. What should we tell them? The communications officer asked. Min smiled, and for the first time in 5 years it was not a diplomatic smile. It was the expression of someone who held all the cards. Tell them we will be in touch when we are ready. As the transmission ended, Min turned to her team. How long until our new ships are ready? The first squadron could be operational within 6 months, Kang replied. Make it 3, Min ordered, and double the production schedule. I have a feeling we are going to need them over the following weeks. The true scope of humanity's transformation became clear. The technologies that had seemed impossible were just the beginning. Human scientists had not just caught up to alien science, they had surpassed it in ways that defied galactic understanding. Dr. Park stood before a mixed group of engineers and scientists, explaining the principles behind their new faster-than-light drive. The aliens use quantum tunneling to achieve faster-than-light travel, he said, but they never considered the possibility of quantum folding. Our ships do not travel through space, they fold space around them. The implications were staggering. Human ships could now travel distances that would take alien vessels months to cover in a matter of hours. They could appear and disappear at will, making them nearly impossible to track or intercept. In the weapons development section, Dr. Cho was demonstrating technologies that would have been considered impossible under alien science. Traditional energy weapons lose power over distance, she explained, but our quantum disruption weapons actually gain power as they travel. The farther they go, the more destructive they become. The military applications were obvious, but the peaceful applications were even more impressive. Human terraforming technology could now reshape entire worlds in months rather than centuries. Human medical technology could not only extend life but actually reverse aging. Human agricultural technology could make barren planets bloom with life. But perhaps the most important breakthrough was in artificial intelligence. The aliens had always forbidden Advanced AI claiming it was too dangerous, but human researchers had found ways to create artificial minds that were not just intelligent but creative. The AI systems that ran human facilities were not just tools, they were partners. They could think independently, solve problems creatively, and even feel emotions in ways that made them almost human. Director Min stood in the central command center watching as their AI systems coordinated the defense preparations. The artificial minds worked alongside human engineers to design new technologies, test new theories, and solve problems that would have taken years to address manually. How long before we are ready for full deployment? Min asked the AI coordinator. At current production rates, we will have a fully operational fleet within 2 months. The AI replied. Its voice was calm and pleasant. Almost human. All systems are performing above specifications. Min nodded. The aliens thought they were getting military assistance. What they were actually getting was a complete transformation of what was possible in the galaxy. The Council had rejected humanity because they thought humans were primitive. What they were about to discover was that humanity had been primitive only because they had been held back. The moment those restrictions were removed, human potential had exploded in ways that redefined what it meant to be an advanced civilization. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity was truly capable of when they stopped asking for permission and started asking better questions, and the answers they found would change everything. The silence in the Galactic Council chambers was complete as the human fleet appeared in the system, where once a single diplomatic vessel had arrived with humble requests. Now 37 warships hung in space like silent monuments to human determination. Council Prime Vex stared at the tactical display, his tentacles moving with barely controlled anxiety. How many ships did you say they have? Sensors show 37 combat vessels, reported the tactical officer, a nervous insect creature, whose jaw pieces clicked rapidly. But sir, these readings, they do not match any known human technology. What do you mean? Vex demanded. Their energy signatures are completely different from anything we have seen before, the officer replied, and their ships, they are not following standard design principles. On the main screen, the human fleet was indeed unlike anything in galactic records. The vessels were sleek and angular, seeming to bend light around them in ways that suggested technological capabilities the Council had never imagined possible for humanity. The ships moved with a grace that defied physics, occasionally flickering in and out of normal space as if they existed in multiple dimensions at once. Their hulls seemed to absorb sensor beams, making them nearly invisible to conventional detection methods. Incoming transmission, announced the communications officer. The screen changed to show not the diplomatic team they expected, but a figure in a military uniform that somehow managed to look both familiar and completely alien at the same time. Admiral Park stood with the bearing of someone who had never learned to bow. Council Prime Vex Park began without any greeting ceremony. I am Admiral Park of the Earth Defense Force. We received your invitation to resume diplomatic relations. Admiral Park Vex replied, struggling to maintain his composure. We are pleased that Earth has reconsidered its position. We are prepared to offer. We are not here to negotiate. Park interrupted. We are here to discuss the terms of our assistance. The council chamber erupted in surprised chatter. Assistance. The humans were supposed to be the ones seeking help, not offering aid. I'm afraid I do not understand, Vex said carefully. Your war with the Devourers, Park stated matter-of-factly. You are losing badly. In approximately 18 months, they will break through your outer defenses and begin consuming core worlds. Your own military projections give you less than a 5% chance of survival. The silence that followed was profound. The existence of the Devourer war had been classified at the highest levels known only to the Council's inner circle. How could the humans possibly have such detailed information? How did you, Vex began? We have been watching, Park replied simply. For 5 years, we have been very carefully watching. Your communications are not as secure as you think, and your military strategies are remarkably predictable. Another council member, a crystalline being named Court, spoke up. Even if what you say is true, what assistance could you possibly provide? Your technology is primitive, your military experience limited. Park smiled, and something about that expression made every alien in the chamber step back. Perhaps a demonstration would be more effective than words. The tactical display suddenly lit up with new contacts. Not ships, but something else entirely. Thousands of small objects were materializing throughout the system, moving with impossible speed and coordination. What are those? Vex demanded, his voice rising in panic. Drones, Park replied calmly, autonomous hunter-killers. Each one is capable of independent thought, tactical adaptation, and carries enough firepower to destroy a battleship. Impossible. Quartz protested, artificial intelligence of that complexity is forbidden by galactic law. The risks are manageable. Park interrupted, when you understand the technology properly, which apparently you do not. The drones began moving through the system, analyzing defenses, cataloging ship positions, and demonstrating capabilities that made the assembled fleet look like toys. Within minutes, they had mapped every defensive position and identified weaknesses that would have taken conventional forces weeks to discover. The aliens watched in growing horror as the drones performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. They moved through solid matter, phased in and out of different dimensions, and seemed to anticipate the movements of the defending ships before they made them. Of course, Park continued conversationally, we could always just leave, return to Earth, and let you handle the devourers on your own. After all, you made it quite clear that humanity has nothing to offer galactic civilization. The council members looked at each other with growing panic. The demonstration had made one thing absolutely clear: humanity was no longer the primitive species they had dismissed. Somehow, in just 5 years of isolation, they had developed capabilities that surpassed anything the council possessed. But how was it possible? How could a species they had dismissed as barely evolved create technology that made their own seem primitive? What do you want? Vex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Full council membership. Park replied immediately. Complete access to galactic technology and trade networks, recognition of Earth as a sovereign equal, and a formal apology for 3 centuries of condescension. That is impossible, Quartz protested weakly. The procedures alone would take decades. You have 24 hours, Park interrupted. After that we return to Earth, and you face the devourers alone. The communication ended, leaving the council in stunned silence outside the human fleet. Maintained their position silent and menacing. The drones continued their patrol, a constant reminder of humanity's newfound capabilities. Sir, the tactical officer whispered to Vex. What do we do? Vex stared at the display showing the human fleet 5 years ago. They had laughed at humanity's requests. Now those same humans held the survival of galactic civilization in their hands. The irony was not lost on him. The species they had dismissed as primitive had become their only hope for survival. The beings they had mocked as intellectually inferior had developed technology that surpassed their own. The creatures they had treated as children had become the adults in the room. Call an emergency session, he ordered all council members, and someone find out exactly what the humans have been doing for the past 5 years. As the emergency session convened, one question dominated every mind. How had humanity become so powerful so quickly? The answer would reshape their understanding of what it meant to be human. Researcher Bloom worked frantically through classified files that had not been accessed in centuries. The emergency session had been called for the next morning, and Council Prime Vex had demanded answers about humanity's impossible transformation. Find anything about Earth's early interactions, Vex had ordered. There has to be something we missed. What Bloom discovered in the ancient files made her crystalline form flicker with distress. The truth was worse than anyone had imagined. The files revealed that when humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel, their initial assessment had classified them as a Class 7 civilization, technologically advanced, socially stable, with significant potential for rapid development. But the Integration Committee had made a deliberate decision to reclassify humanity as Class 3 primitive but potentially useful. This reclassification was not based on any deficiency in human capabilities, but on strategic considerations. The committee had determined that humanity's rapid technological advancement posed a potential threat to established council hierarchies. The decision was made to limit their development through controlled integration. For 3 centuries, they had been deliberately suppressing humanity's development, not because humans were incapable, but because they were too capable. Their technology was comprehensible, their methods replicable, and their potential unlimited. The council had not just underestimated humanity, they had actively worked to prevent humans from reaching their full potential. What they were seeing now was what humanity had always been capable of, and Now that potential was free to develop without restrictions. The results were beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The humans were not just returning to galactic civilization, they were returning as its potential saviors, and the Council had no choice but to accept whatever terms humanity chose to offer because, for the first time in galactic history, the fate of every species hung in the balance and only the dismissed primitive humans had the power to tip the scales. In the depths of the Council archives, researcher Bloom worked frantically through classified files that had not been accessed in centuries. The emergency session had been called for the next morning, and Council Prime Vex had demanded answers about humanity's impossible transformation. Find anything about Earth's early interactions. Vex had ordered, there has to be something we missed. What Bloom discovered in the ancient files made her crystalline form flicker with distress. The truth was worse than anyone had imagined. Next morning, the Council chamber was packed with representatives from every member species. The human fleet still hung in space outside their drones, maintaining a perimeter that no one dared to cross. Admiral Park had not responded to any communication attempts, leaving the Council to debate among themselves. We cannot simply give in to their demands, insisted Representative Krek, his hard shell clicking with agitation. To grant them immediate membership would set a dangerous precedent. The precedent has already been set. Vex replied grimly. Bias researcher Bloom, present your findings. Bloom moved to the center of the chamber, her form shimmering with nervous energy. Honored Council, I have reviewed our historical records about humanity's integration into galactic civilization. The findings are disturbing. She activated a holographic display, showing documents from 3 centuries ago, when humanity first achieved faster than light travel. Our initial assessment classified them as a Class 7 civilization, technologically advanced, socially stable, with significant potential for rapid development. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Class 7 was the same classification given to species that had become Council members within decades of contact. However, Bloom continued. The integration committee made a deliberate decision to reclassify humanity as Class 3 primitive but potentially useful. This reclassification was not based on any deficiency in human capabilities, but on strategic considerations. What kind of strategic considerations demanded? Representative Quartz competition. Bloom replied simply, the committee determined that humanity's rapid technological advancement posed a potential threat to established Council hierarchies. The decision was made to limit their development through controlled integration. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For 3 centuries, they had been deliberately suppressing humanity's development, not because humans were incapable, but because they were too capable. The files detail specific methods. Bloom continued. Selective technology sharing, educational restrictions, research limitations, and social conditioning designed to maintain human dependency on Council resources. That is a violation of our core integration protocols, whispered Representative Meld, a gaseous being whose form was wavering with shock. It gets worse, Bloom said, her voice barely audible. The committee also implemented what they called cognitive dampening psychological conditioning, designed to make humans believe they were naturally inferior to other species. The silence was complete. Every member of the Council was beginning to understand the magnitude of what they had done. They had not just underestimated humanity, they had actively worked to prevent humans from reaching their full potential. For 3 centuries, Bloom concluded, we have been systematically suppressing one of the most naturally advanced species the galaxy has ever encountered. What we are seeing now, their technological capabilities, their military prowess, their rapid advancement, this is what humanity was always capable of. X's tentacles hung limply at his sides. How advanced could they have become without our interference based on their current rate of development? Bloom replied, they should have surpassed our technological capabilities within 50 years of first contact. Instead, we spent 3 centuries keeping them as subordinates. The chamber erupted in panicked discussion. Representatives who had laughed at humanity's requests now realized they had been mocking their potential saviors. The species they had dismissed as primitive had been artificially held back by their own arrogance. Sir, the tactical officer interrupted, we are receiving another transmission from the human fleet. Admiral Park appeared on the screen, his expression unreadable. Council Prime Vex, I trust you have had time to consider our proposal. Admiral Park Vex began. His voice heavy with implications he could not quite voice. "We need more time to time is something you do not have." Park interrupted. "Our deep space monitors have detected Devourer advanced scouts in the outer rim. They will reach your core systems within 12 months, not 18. The blood drained from every face in the chamber. If the Devourers were ahead of schedule, then the Council's survival depended entirely on human assistance. There is something else," Park continued, "we have been analyzing. Devourer technology and tactics. They are not just random destroyers, they are strategic. They have been studying galactic military doctrine for decades, adapting their forces to counter every defensive strategy you have developed. How is that possible?" Vex asked. "Because your military thinking has been stagnant for centuries," Park replied bluntly. "When you suppress innovation, you create predictable patterns. The Devourers have learned to exploit those patterns." The implications were staggering. Not only had the Council's suppression of humanity weakened their potential allies, it had made them vulnerable to their enemies. However, Park continued, human military doctrine developed in isolation. Our strategies, our technologies, our tactical approaches. None of them exist in galactic databases to the Devourers. We are a completely unknown factor. What are you saying?" Vex whispered. "I am saying that your arrogance may have accidentally created the one thing that can save you," Park replied. "Humanity developed without your influence, which means we develop beyond your limitations." The chamber fell silent as the full irony of the situation became clear. The Council's attempt to keep humanity subordinate had backfired spectacularly. They had created exactly the kind of unpredictable, innovative force that could defeat an enemy adapted to fight conventional galactic civilization. The Devourers had spent decades learning to counter every weapon, every strategy, every tactical approach that the established galactic powers might use, but they had never encountered human military doctrine because humans had never been allowed to develop it independently. "Your offer," Vex said quietly, "full Council membership, complete access to galactic resources, recognition as equals non-negotiable," Park confirmed, "and the formal apology that is important." Vex looked around the chamber at his fellow Council members. For the first time in galactic history, the Council was about to voluntarily surrender its superior position to a species they had once dismissed as primitive. The weight of 3 centuries of arrogance pressed down on them. They had convinced themselves that age meant wisdom, that established power meant natural superiority, that their way was the only way. But now, faced with extinction, they were forced to confront the truth. "They had been wrong about everything we accept," Vex said. "All terms." Park nodded. "Good. We will begin coordinating the defense immediately." And Council Prime Vexius, "This is going to be the most important lesson in galactic history. Do not waste it." The transmission ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. They had spent 3 centuries suppressing humanity's development and convincing themselves it was for the greater good. Now they were about to discover what humanity could have accomplished if they had been treated as equals from the beginning. The galaxy was about to change in ways that none of them could imagine, because the species they had dismissed as primitive was about to show them what true advancement looked like, and the lesson would be written in the survival or extinction of galactic civilization itself. 6 months after the Council accepted humanity's terms, the galaxy was a very different place. The joint human-alien fleet hung in space above the contested world of Kepler 442b, humanity's first major military action as full Council members. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the flagship Determination, watching as his revolutionary tactics unfolded across the battlefield. "Devourer main force is engaging the decoy fleet," reported Captain Kim from the tactical station. "They are taking the bait perfectly." Phase 2 Park ordered, "Send in the ghosts." What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human ghost fleet ships capable of phasing in and out of normal space appeared directly behind the Devourer formation. It was technology that should not have been possible based on theoretical physics that the Council had declared impossible decades ago. The ghost ships moved like living things, bending space around them and striking with weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. The Devourers, who had adapted to fight every known form of galactic military technology, found themselves facing something completely outside their experience. Sir Kim continued, "Devourer forces are attempting to adapt to our tactics. Let them try." Park replied calmly, "They are fighting the last war on The secondary screen, he could see the expressions of his alien allies, Council Prime Vex, stood on the bridge of his flagship watching in amazement as human forces systematically dismantled an enemy that had been pushing the galaxy toward extinction for over a decade. How are they doing this? Vex asked over the communication channel by. Thinking differently, Park replied, your species have been fighting the same way for millennia. The Devourers adapted to your patterns. But human military doctrine developed in isolation. We never learned your limitations. The battle was over within hours. The Devourer force, which had been steadily consuming Outer Rim worlds, was completely destroyed. Not a single human ship was lost and alien casualties were minimal. The effectiveness was almost supernatural. Human ships appeared and disappeared at will, striking with precision that seemed to anticipate enemy movements. Before they happened, their weapons ignored shields and armor that had protected Devourer forces for years. As the combined fleet regrouped, Park received a priority transmission from Earth. The face of Director Min appeared on screen, looking tired but satisfied. Admiral, how did the Council representatives handle their first real look at human capabilities? Park glanced at the secondary screen showing Vex's bridge. I think they are beginning to understand what they have been missing. Good, Min replied. Because Phase 3 is ready to begin. Phase 3, Park raised an eyebrow. The Council thought they were getting military assistance. Min explained what they are actually getting is a complete transformation of galactic civilization over the following weeks. The true scope of humanity's post-isolation development became clear. The technologies that had seemed impossible were just the beginning. Human scientists and engineers began sharing innovations that revolutionized everything from faster than light travel to planetary terraforming. Der Young, now director of Galactic Medical Research, stood before a mixed audience of human and alien scientists. The longevity treatments we have developed are not just compatible with human biology, she explained. With minor modifications, they can be adapted for any carbon-based life form. The implications were staggering. Humans were offering to share technology that could extend the lifespan of every species in the galaxy by centuries. Why? Asked Dr. Quill, a respected alien researcher. Why share such valuable technology? Because isolation taught us something important, Yang replied. Innovation thrives on diversity. We developed these treatments by studying human biology in isolation, but imagine what we could achieve by studying the biology of hundreds of species in the Council chambers. The transformation was even more dramatic. The hierarchical structure that had dominated galactic politics for millennia was being replaced by something unprecedented: actual cooperation between equals. The humans are proposing a complete restructuring of the Council, Vex explained to the assembled representatives. Instead of a hierarchical system with senior and junior members, they want a federation of equals. That is impossible, protested Representative Krek. Some species are naturally more advanced than others are, they asked Ambassador Kim, who had returned to diplomatic service with a very different status than before. Or have we just been telling ourselves that for so long that we started to believe it? The question hung in the air like a challenge for 3 centuries. The Council had operated on the assumption that age and established power equaled superiority, but humanity's rapid advancement had shattered that assumption completely. The Devourers are not our